We're being conditioned by the mainstream information sources that our enemy is with our ego, or our ego is our enemy. Whereas the ego is your inner divinity. It is what drives your human spirit beyond the ordinary into the extraordinary, beyond the natural into the supernatural. Of course, your oppressor. The aim is to subdue your ego, to make you humble, to have a lower sense of self-value and esteem. Whereas they don't want the subject or subordinates to possess a high sense of self-evaluation. Because knowledge is freeing. Knowledge is the power that makes one like God, unfit to be enslaved. Welcome to another BlackSwanRadio.com podcast. I am your host, Rondale L. Jordan, and this is your destination for worldview conversation and flight music, because here I encourage you to explore the Word and the world of God, because I believe the Word of God is access to the world of God. Because what or whom can reveal to you anything greater than God? So I believe that the world beyond our shores is God's sanctuary, and what God will reveal to you therein is absolutely wonderful. And so, of course, if you know me or you ever heard the sound of my voice, you know that I encourage you to get your passport and be driven by your faith, driven by purpose, your inner spirit, because we only get to live life once. You know, the internet is been driven greatly by drama, right? Constant drama, mainly having to do with relationships and scandals. And you know, for me, it's annoying because I recognize that it's the jungle gym, it's the distraction, it's the child's play to keep us occupied from having a worldview. We're occupied in the theaters. Why? The lords, the overlords of our society wrestle over the fate of the future generations, right? You know, they're experimenting with the public. They're manipulating the public with the public instruments such as media and law enforcement and all different types of things, and yet we are consumed with the next scandal between Will and Jada or something of its sort. You know, feuds between comedians, whom we put in positions of power as if they are leaders. Now, granted, in many ways, the speakers of truth find clever ways to deliver its message to the people. So, perhaps the great revelation of the scandals and scams of Hollywood. We're living in a day and age where the economic system is being dismantled. The political system is in disarray. It's obviously compromised and, unreliable. The judicial system has been weaponized against the family. And of course, the population is being controlled by reducing reproduction, by keeping enmity between the men and the women, making the women unfit and men unfit for cohabitation. Now, just because this is the reality that we see on the internet does not mean that this has to be your reality. What you want to do is spend time determining what you want to do, to achieve, right? And then plan your actions directed towards the outcomes you want to see realized. And give yourself dates, beginning and end dates. So even if you want to express or experience let's say, the cultures of Colombia, Dominican Republic, and Brazil this year, so that you can write about your experiences and compare the foods and flavors and the vibes, you are free to spell out these details or the life that you want to see unfold for you. And then give yourself dates and just see how things flow into fruition. You can still make a life, but what you have to do is be aware and conscious, not to allow the external world dictate your reality. So I begin this podcast with, something that I wrote down this morning when I was at work. That we're being conditioned by mainstream medias, right? Whether it's in schools or churches or television programs, that the ego is your enemy to subdue. But if you look in the definition of ego, it's a person's sense of self-esteem or self-importance, their self-worth, their self-respect. Right? In the psychoanalysis, it's the part of the mind that mediates between the conscious and the unconscious and is responsible for reality testing and a sense of personal identity. Right? In metaphysics, it's a conscious thinking subject. Alright? So hopefully this is a boost to your ego, because again, a person's sense of self, a conscious thinking subject, a part of the mind that mediates between the conscious and the unconscious, and is responsible for reality testing and a sense of personal identity. Alright? Now, you compare that to humble, which is having or showing a modest or low estimate of one's own importance. Right? was humble about his stature, and one of rock history's most influential guitarists. It also humble means a low social, administrative, or political rank. She came from a humble or unprivileged background. So it's low ranking, lowly, lower class. All right. And, I'm not judging whether one is right or wrong. What I'm saying is that both of them have to do with your esteem. Right? Your sense of value and importance. Now, we should have a balance between humility and ego. But ego is your inner divinity, right? That conscious thinking subject. That part of the mind that mediates between the conscious and the unconscious. Right? Oftentimes you have to write it out to spell out the words. It is what drives your human spirit beyond the ordinary into the extraordinary. So if you're trying to make a standard operating system for the general public, right, you're going to have an ordinary model. All right. And then there's something that has to occur within the human being that causes them to go beyond the ordinary into the extraordinary, or beyond the natural into the supernatural. All right. But as I said, the shepherds, as you can say, those who control the flow of the masses in terms of population, right? Their aim is to subdue your ego, to keep you humble, right? All right? To keep you at a low sense of self-value, a labor force. Now, it isn't not that they're, if you come up out of that, the only way you will is through knowledge and skill development, right? By boosting your ego, boosting your self-value, self-evaluation. All right, so this is the reason why knowledge is free, right? And one of the things we were talking about today at work is that there's multiple perspectives on how you can perceive the scriptures, and who's to say which was right or wrong? Just like art, you look at art, people can get a different sense of what is being communicated, or the psychology behind the artwork. All right, and 10 different people may see 10 different perspectives, and each one of those people may have valid points. All right, so in the next conversation, we'll deal with the duality between the goddess and the god in the Bible, because there's been enmity put between man and woman because the divine feminine has been cut out of the legacy. And so it's very important to put that back in, to include that for the balance for the female, to give the female divinity to aspire to as well. But the serpent is actually the goddess or the mother, all right, said to the woman, "You will not surely die, for God knows that in